There are few phenomena in nature which happen to be a hazard and which are equally significant naturally. Now, can you think of any such type of a phenomena which is actually a blessing for human beings, which is a blessing for nature, without which nature will not be able to regenerate in itself, but if it is going to be man-made, it can go on to be a devastation. Forest fire is going to be one of a such type of an event. And when we say it is one of those type of events, it basically means that in some regions, forest fire is essential. Fire is essential for vegetation because of a lot of qualities, because of a lot of properties that allows it to regenerate it. But then the moment it goes on to become man-made, it is going to be a literal devastation of sorts. And these forests, which are going to be on fire, as you can go to see, some of them flames, some of these flames reach 200 feet or even more than that of a height. That's not going to be something that is easy to control at all. Forest fire is one such type of an event that is natural as well as it is very, very man-made. With what you need to know with respect to forest fire is what exactly is a forest fire, what are the forms of forest fire. The third is what exactly are the causes. Fourth is how is it that it's a natural phenomena. Fifth is how can it be controlled or mitigated. And sixth is to what extent a nature-centric approach, an ecocentric approach, or the help of a local wisdom can go on to help us fight forest fire. So, in a very normal sense, you can go to say that forest fires are forests which are on fire. But with population increase, the frequency and damage that is done by forest fire is increasing day by day. And that is why it goes on to become a hazard. The impact of the fire is diverse on the forest system because it doesn't only go on to burn the trees. It doesn't only go on to burn the grasses. It has many such type of impacts about which we are not normally aware of. Forests, when they are on fire, they adversely affect a lot of things. For example, they affect the regeneration of the forest. Now, regeneration means every forest is naturally tuned to regenerate itself if left undisturbed by the human beings. That is one. Second is all of these forests are a part of a microclimate in the sense that they influence the climatic condition of that place where the microclimatic conditions are presently available. And when we talk about microclimate, we are talking about the climate that is only within that zone. And the temperatures normally in those regions go on to be around 5 degrees centigrade lower than that. Of course, forests help control erosion of the soil. Forests are the habitat for wildlife also in this region. And when we say that is they are the habitat of it, that all these animals which can go on to make us happy, which can go on to make us useful, which can go on to be so instrumental in carrying the legacy of a civilization for the mankind, that is wildlife, and they find their home only in the forest. If fire takes place, then forest fire causes retrogression of the forest vegetation. For example, a vegetation may go on to its, if it's a vegetation that is lush, green, dense, then it will go on to get regenerated first into an arid vegetation and then into a xerophytic vegetation and then completely into a desert type of vegetation. That is retrogression. But forest fire take a variety of forms, and when we say that it goes on to take a variety of forms, it basically means that forest fire is not only concerned with forest fire because of the form. Forest fire is one of those forms, and this form means it's a degenerating factor which extensively damages growing stock, all of those plants that are growing there, which damages growing stock and its generations in making the area vulnerable to erosion, because when the plants have been removed, the soil is going to be exposed on the surface, and that will go on to affect the washing of the topsoil when it rains, or even if it doesn't rain, even when the wind speed is high, it will go on to blow the topsoil away. So such type of forest fires have wide-ranging adverse ecological and social implications. Economic is included in that. But then when we're going to talk about a natural phenomena, we do not going to talk about economic implications as much. So forest fire happened to be one of them. Other than that, it goes on to be fire gas. Fire gas is essentially, it's invisible to the naked eye. It's to the naked eye, but then it includes such things as poisonous substances which people can go to inhale. For example, carbon monoxide. And when you inhale carbon monoxide, you don't know you are inhaling carbon monoxide. And it will go on to give you a good sleep, nice sleep, gradually, till you sleep forever. The third is the flame. Now, when three essential ingredients, for example, the fuel, in this case, that is going to be wood, oxygen, of course, oxygen is going to be available, and heat is there, of course, flames are going to be high and high. And not only that, as the flames go on to get themselves generated, it creates a low pressure. And when it creates a low pressure, the place of this low pressure is going to be taken by winds converging from every direction. And when the winds converge in this place, they lead to very high velocity winds, and the fire increases, the fire spreads, and the fire is on fire. The fourth is heat. When the forest is on fire, then normally the temperature in this case can go to be hovering around 1100 degrees centigrade. That means it can easily smelt iron ore as well. And not to talk of it other than heat, it is smoke. And smoke is a harmful vapor cloud mixed with a fine powder of solid particles and some gases. So much so that if smoke is going to be all around, then you're going to find a small pollen-like things falling all the way from the sky, or maybe from the atmosphere onto the surface. It's really harmful. It's a vapor cloud which is mixed with fine powder of solid particles. Why solid? And from where the solids came? The solids come from the trees itself, come from the grasses itself. And of course, it's a combination of gases as well. That is going to be part of it. Forest fire has been in India, and of course, forest fire is a natural occurrence in the country. And how is it that we're going to say it's a natural occurrence, and where it is going to be? It's mostly prevalent in places like that of Orissa, it's in Uttarakhand, it's in Himachal Pradesh. These are the three areas where it is going to be really prevalent. And as you can go to see it on the map of the country, that is where exactly is it that it is going to be fire prone, where exactly it is going to be moderately fire prone, and where exactly it is going to be less fire prone as well. So all of these areas that are red in color, more or less orange in color, they are going to be fire prone. Yellow is going to be moderately fire prone, and the gray section is going to be less fire prone in this case. That's how it is going to be distributed. In 2021, there has been series of forest fires in the country, and most of these forest fires have taken place in which regions? They have been in Himachal Pradesh, Nagaland, of course Manipur border, these have been one, and you're going to find it coming more and more in 2022, 2023, 2024, all of it. Supposing you are dealing with this topic somewhere in 2023, then it's only that the year will go on to change, and the distribution that is going to be present here that will going to change. This is distribution map, and that is the name of the place. So both of them will going to go for a change. In Gujarat also, it is going to be a prevalent feature. Madhya Pradesh is going to be very prevalent because Madhya Pradesh is mostly made of a deciduous forest condition. So, as you can go to see in the map, that is, some of them are fire prone, some are moderately fire prone, some are less fire prone. That's a map that you have seen. And these are the areas which have undergone through so much amount of fire. January 2021 saw prolonged fires in Uttarakhand and in Himachal Pradesh and Simlipal. These are the three regions in 2020 which have seen so much amount of fire. And the names are pretty significant in this case because in Himachal Pradesh it has been Kullu Valley, and Nagaland and Manipur border it has been Zokhu Valley, while Simlipal Massif has been the one that has been in Orissa. Uttarakhand has experienced more than something like some 1,000 forest fires in 6 months of a time. And Uttarakhand is the one region which is mostly prone to such type of forest fire. Now, as we said, that is a forest fire is a natural event. But forest fires are man-made as well. We go on to create forest fire. So as a natural event, it's very common during summer season. And where exactly? It is going to be in Uttarakhand, where there are chir and pine trees. These trees allow the formation of a leaf litter, that is, something that is strewn onto the surface, that leaf litter. It is this leaf litter that is very, very dry, and it is very inflammable. And I repeat it, I say it, and I mean that as well. It's very, very inflammable. It's like you go on to pick up dry leaves of chir and pine and just going to take it near to fire, and you will go on to find it really, really, really inflammable of sorts. So in all of those places where chir and pine forests are found, pine goes on to lead to formation of a needle-like formation of leaves on the surface. And when they're going to become dry, even a small spark of a bidi cigarette in that place can go on to destroy it. And can you imagine it? That is going to be used as a tool by the Chinese. That is going to be used as a tool even by the Islamic terrorists, which comprise something like some 20% of population of India in India, because they're always thinking of how to create trouble, how to foment problems, how exactly to destroy the country, how exactly that they can go to intrude here and there and then going to take it further as well. Forest fire are a natural factor in Uttarakhand largely because there is a lack of soil moisture in these regions, and it is this lack of soil moisture which is making the soil dry. A dry soil with a dry leaf on the surface is a recipe for disaster. These fires of longer duration, increasing intensity, higher frequency, highly inflammable nature are all linked to only one factor, that we're going to call it as climatic change. Well, global warming is a very good scholarly topic because anything, blame it on global warming. It's so simple, and it is so generalized also to take it forward as well. But then, when we talk about forest fire, and why is it that forest fires are increasing in intensity throughout the whole of the country and throughout the whole of the world, in terms of intensity, frequency, inflammability, is all because the world is getting drier and drier and drier of sorts. It's a natural event. So, forest fire is a natural event, and why is it that it is a natural event? What makes it a natural event, and to what extent it is beneficial as well? Now, as you talk about that, is forest fires are common during March and April. In India, of course, mostly it is going to be Uttarakhand. So why exactly it is going to be there? This is largely because reason number one is when the ground has large quantities of dry wood. And why is it that the wood is going to become dry? because they have been experiencing long periods of areas without rain. So the rains have stopped somewhere in October, November, and then November, December, January, February, up till March. They have been getting dry, dry, and dry. So it has large number of dry wood logs, which dead leaves. Leaves because March is the time when the tree is going to shed their leaves. Stumps, that is those type of trees which have fallen, and since then the trees are dead and they're going to become dry. Some of these stumps, I mean, it's almost like that is those type of stumps which are actually existing. Dry grass and weeds that go on to make the forest easily grow in flames. Stumps that are broken trees, dry grass because some of these grasses that have dried out or in the process of getting dried, and the whole of this region is going to be strewn with weeds. So you cannot go on to find a better place for a fire to start other than these places in this region. So it is going to be a natural factor. It is going to be a major region in this case. But then forest fires actually go on to become a concern for us on a variety of factors. They are a concern largely because of many aspects. Why is it that they should go to concern us? Largely because forests have some significance, and the significance is going to be one of them is that is in form of mitigation and adaptation to climatic change. With forest fire, with of course not forest fire, with forest you can easily mitigate and adapt to climatic changes. Second is that of course forests act as a sink, reservoir, and source of carbon. Now, when India has committed itself to COP26, this is going to be a major factor. And forest doesn't only mean that we are talking about trees. Forest in this case means that we are talking about grasses as well. So forests act as a sink for carbon. If you have to remove carbon from the atmosphere, forest is the only answer and the one answer. Then you can go on to they also act as reservoir. When you're going to grow more and more some such type of vegetation, particularly wetlands, then that is a reservoir and source of carbon as well. Fires destroy them. This is what exactly is happening in places like that of Siberia, where the melting of the permafrost is allowing grasses to be on fire, and the peat layer that is below that is burning like anything, and it is liberating carbon dioxide to an unimaginable proportion. The fourth is there is heat generated during the fire destroys animal habitats. That also goes on to destroy the microorganisms found in the soil. Of course, animal habitats are going to be destroyed, and as the habitats are going to get destroyed, then the habitats are going to shrink. The moment the habitats shrink, then there are a lot of animals competing for food. Unable to find food, either they die out, or some of these animals may go on to think of migrating as well. And if they go on to go for migration, the ultimate effect is that they become prone to attack by whom? The bigger animal. And who can it be? Human being itself. So forest fires are concerned because forest fires can go on to have a multiple effect on the forest cover, effect on the soil. How is it that it can go on to be on forest cover? Because the next forest that will go on to come up, they will not go on to be of such a good quality. How it can be on soil? The temperature of the soil will go on to increase, and not only that the temperature is increasing, all the microorganisms found in the soil, they will be destroyed. It will also going to have an effect on the tree growth. And when we say tree growth, we essentially mean that in this case, the effect is going to be associated with the stunting of the growth. In this case, vegetation, the change in the vegetation composition of the place as well. And when we talk about change in the vegetation composition, there is forestic changes, and that is how the overall effect of flora and fauna also goes on to take a place. And when we talk of it, overall effect, then overall effect is always going to be not only in terms of the stunting of the trees, the floristic changes, the funnel changes, the compositional changes, the leaf changes, but also the density of the forest in this case. Some of those people whose livelihood is going to be dependent on that, anyone whose livelihood is dependent, they are going to be getting affected. And people who live with nature, in this case, all of those people, they are dependent on forest for bamboo, for fodder, for small timber, for almost everything. And they actually go on to be devastated because of all of these factors, because of all of these effects. Of course, extreme heat and dryness. And why is it that it goes on to get heated? Because of the forest, because of the rubbing of the branches. And why is it that the rubbing of the branches take place? Rubbing of the branches take place because of the wind velocity. And wind velocity is high because the forest fire has taken place. Forest fire causes a low pressure formation in this region. Low pressure allows the winds to converge in this place, and the speed of the winds go on to really very high. That is one. And these contributing factors, that means the contributing factors to the forest becoming inflammable, are also many of them. That is why exactly is it that this extreme heat goes on to take place is going to be because of contributing factors. And they can going to be associated with one of them is a build-up of highly inflammable chir and pine dead leaves. When we are talking about inflammable in the sense that is these forests really are prone to it because you have dry chir and pine dead leaves in this region. Hydrological health is poor. Why? Because people have already been destroying it. And because they have been destroying it, the groundwater has gone low, the surface water has dried out, so the soil is going to be dry. Moreover, if global temperature is increasing, then there is an increased impact of the temperature increased impact of temperature increases as well. And forests are always feeling the pressure because of human activity in the vicinity. So they are shrinking every year. Top it all. When there is increasing impact of temperature increase, the hydrological health is here, the hydrological health is poor, then it is bound to be affected by drought conditions. All these factors together, they will go on to contribute to this dryness, friction, and rubbing of the branches in this case. So this is how forest fire will go on to take place. That is going to be natural. They have to take place, and because of the temperature changes, because of some of these factors, forest fires are on increase. Now, even if forest fires are on increase, forest fire offer a lot of advantages because being a natural phenomena, it does offer a lot of advantages. And how is it that it is going to be offering advantages? Think of it. In some of these ecosystems, the fire may be considered as a component of great importance. And why? Because without fire, the seeds will not go to open up. Some of these seeds going to be having a shell on the surface, on the top of it, and they will not going to break. They will not going to be open. That's one example. Particularly in the savanna region, this will not go on to happen at all. So fire must take place also. Second, forests are particularly important in promoting primary productivity. And when you are talking about primary productivity, that is the first productivity. If primary productivity is not going to be high, then there is no way that the animals can go to thrive. Fire also stimulates flowering, increase the branching behavior and production of seedling establishment, because maybe some of these pollens can go to fly out from this place. Stimulate flowering because the temperature is going to be increasing. Temperature is going to be needed for the purpose of stimulating flowering. Increasing the branching behavior in the sense that is some of the trees will go on to have their branches away from the fire. Branching behavior, seed production, and seed germination as well. And why? As we talked about that some of these seeds may be having a hard shell over the surface, and because they're going to be having a hard shell, therefore in these areas, in these regions, they will going to break open and pry open, and of course that is how seedlings will go to start. Fires limited to the surface may help in generation, that is in the natural regeneration of the forest. Limited to the surface. The problem is when it is not only limited to the surface, rather it goes on to go deep down as well in this case. And when it goes on to go deep down, then it is indeed a problem, and the problem goes on to get aggravated. So, forest fire is something that has been increased because of a variety of factors, because of pine trees, because of temperature changes, because of hydrological factors. Forest fire also must also go on to take place. And why should it don't take place? Because it goes on to help nature. But then it becomes a problem only when it goes on to become man-made event. Unfortunate part is more than 95% of the wildfires are man-made, because people trigger this forest fire by burning dry leaves. And when they're going to burn dry leaves, of course, it may not be limited, and it may not be under control as well. That is one factor. The moment it goes on to go out of control, the entire of the region goes on to get itself engulfed. Now, going by the type of education that the people are going to be provided with, particularly Western education, particularly in those areas where people they study Baba, black sheep and whatnot in these regions, then most of the children who are young and 21, 22 years of age, they're very apathetic, very apathetic, because they compare their forest with some of the forests outside the country and with Western countries. Of course, they can't be compared. And when we say that they can't be compared, it basically means that they are very apathetic to their own forest. They are apathetic to their country, apathetic to their people, apathetic to the forest, apathetic to the organism as well. So villagers are apathetically concerned about forests, and there is no forest fire. Because they are apathetic, so they hardly care, even if it is that it goes on to be on fire. It's a natural phenomenon that the villagers in these regions, they go on to burn leaves and grasses in order to get better growth of grass in the following year. Because in this manner, they are able to remove the weeds. Now, if the weeds are removed out of it, and fire goes on to become one means and mechanism of removing the weed, understand it. That is the amount of nutrient that is going to be taken from the soil, that is going to be reduced. So this is one practice is they're going to burn leaves and grasses, and they think that is the next year the productivity will be better. That goes on to go out of control, and of course the fires start taking place and they spread on a much more wider scale. Forest dwellers always, not only now, always they have been burning the fir and pine needles. Always have been burning it so. And why is it so? Because that is the way that they're going to make their livelihood. The problem now is that sometimes there only may have been something like some 3 or 4 people, but now there are going to be 30 or 40 people. 3 or 4 people were not responsible for any type of an impending disaster. But now, with so many people, that is always going to be associated with a impending disaster in this case. There are other factors as well. For example, you will go to imagine that there are going to be a lot of invasive species as well, invasive weeds as well. For example, one of them is going to be lantana. Now, lantana grass is going to be at the risk of a fire. And we are talking about that is going to be at fire risk. It's always going to be at a fire risk. And most of this lantana grass is going to be invasive in nature. That means it has invaded the region. Of course, it is not Indian in nature, and it is found in good number of tiger reserves as well. That makes it much more prone to fire. Of course, other is going to be carelessness of the collectors of non-timber forest. People outside the forest happen to come to this place. And when they come, they are laborers, they are people who are not at all concerned. They may be smoking a bidi or a cigarette. Supposing someone has come to collect something, some timber produce, and the government goes on to give contracts for that purpose. And then there are some people who must be there to monitor these, and they are not sincere enough to monitor these aspects. As you can go to see one of the gentlemen having a bidi in cigarette in this place, that is lethal. That is really dangerous of sorts in this case. So when they smoke a bidi and cigarette in this region and they're going to throw it out in a careless manner, in a callous manner, of course they do start it. Sometimes the locals often set a fire to sal leaves for the purpose of collecting mahua. Moreover, that is not all. Now, setting the sal to fire for the purpose of collecting mahua is a practice. It's only that its intensity and its frequency has been increasing. The poachers who come to this place, and they don't going to follow any rule, law, or any one of them at all. So what they're going to do is that they try to chase animals, they try to trap animals, and for the purpose of entrapment, they chase them, and then they go on to trap it by starting fire from one direction, so that they're going to run in another direction where they can be collected or where they can be trapped. And other than that, in the northeastern region, people do go on to follow slash and burn cultivation, and such type of slash and burn cultivation in the northeastern region is a major factor contributing to it. Of course, there are other factors as well. For example, as you can go on to take note of it, in the Tarai region, honey collectors start fires to drive away the bees. That becomes a cause for it. So in Uttarakhand, the cause may be different. While it is going to be in Tarai region, it goes on to become different. Then the diversion of spring water for human use has gradually decreased the moisture content of the forest floor. Think of it. When we have been constantly talking about, that is the number of people living in the forest area, and as the number of these people go on to increase, that is the diversion of water for the purpose of human use. Because the number of people have increased, that's why there is a need for diverting this water, and that decreases the moisture content of the forest floor. Of course, the forest is going to become dry, and the damage that would have been taking place because of the forest fire on a small scale now goes on to occupy a larger area. Then the residents of Uttarakhand, the villagers who previously checked the buildup of highly inflammable fir and pine, now they have migrated. And why is it that they have migrated? Because that is not a place for livelihood at all. Imagine we are talking about inflammable fir and pine, they have migrated. That is the word. They are not living in that place. They are the one who know how to handle that fire, and they're not living there at all. It's like that is in a village, there have been some people who knew how to trap animals and how to take care of them. They have migrated. So now that has gone to become completely defenseless in this region. So forest fire have been taking place in the country, and there are reasons for it. What exactly is going to be the impact of these forest fires? So far we have talked about, that is, what has been fire, what have been the forms of fire, how is it that in India it has been increasing, to what extent it is going to be a natural phenomena, and to what extent and why is it that it goes on to become man-made phenomena, till we go on to talk about it in the form of impact. So forest fire can even lead to local extinction of species. Some of these species are going to become extinct because, of course, they will go on to get burnt up. Now, understand that part. There are going to be some of these forests like that of oak forest. Oak and pine is going to be two of the most important. Now, oak trees go on to go deep down to obtain what, not only obtain water, but then their roots are deeper. Pine is not going to be so. Oak is able to bind the soil much more better. Now, oak forests are very important for the local villages, as the dead leaves are used for composting for terrace farming. And when you burn the oak forest, then there are no dead leaves at all in this case at all. And of course, everything is going to be lost. But the real loss is always going to be ecological and social. And that is in the form of the loss of biodiversity, that is biodiversity goes on to get lost, and some of these animals may go on to become permanently extinct. The loss of soil moisture and nutrients that can go on to be in the soil. That's one of those type of impacts. The effect of forest fire is going to be that, of course, it is going to be devastating. And as you can go to understand it, and as you can go to see it as well, that is fires are a major cause of what we're going to say, that is of forest degradation. Degradation is the loss of the quality, and they have a adverse economic, social, and ecological ramifications, including the loss of valuable timber resources. When we are talking about timber resources, of course, fire will be responsible for destroying it. Degradation of the catchment area. Catchment area, that means the place from where the rivers or the water bodies go on to originate. Now, if the forests in those regions have been destroyed, then the catchment area, the ability of the catchment area to hold that much amount of water also goes on to decrease. That is also going to be associated with the loss of biodiversity and extinction of plants and animals. When we are talking about the loss of biodiversity and extinction of plants and animals, loss of biodiversity, and that's largely because, of course, some of these plants will go to die out, some of these animals will go to die out, and extinction will go to take place only because they have been in the process of dying. They will have nothing to base themselves on, and that is the basic reason. And of course, it is going to associate with the loss of wildlife habitats. The habitat will going to get destroyed. If the habitat is going to be getting destroyed and the biodiversity loss goes to take place, then there cannot be a bigger devastation than that. As fire takes place, there will be a loss of natural regeneration capacity of the forest, and reduction in the forest cover. So forests have a tendency, all the natural things have a capacity to naturally regenerate itself, and that is going to be a loss. Of course, with forest fire, the global warming will go on to increase. And why it has to increase? It has to increase largely because the area of forest will go on to decrease. The impact of forest fire is going to be seen on the carbon sink reserve as well. And when we are going to be talking about the carbon loss of carbon sink reserve, that is, it's a reserve. It's a place where it goes on to hold a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Then change in the microclimate, that is, the temperature of that place will go on to increase, and it may go on to become unhealthy for the organism, unhealthy for the people, for both of them. And if you don't have a forest, of course, soil erosion will go on to increase in this case. Most of these forest fires that are going to be taking place, and with the loss of the forest, ozone layer will going to be getting depleted, and not to talk about numerous health problems because of the smoke and because of other factors, and loss of livelihood of the people who are completely dependent on the forest. So it is going to be not one effect leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. So it's going to be a domino effect of sorts. Maybe that the effect has been seen or mitigated in one place, but it keeps on increasing, keeps on getting itself bloated as well. So how can it be managed now? As you understand it and as you're going to see it, since 2004, FSI, that is Forest Survey of India, have developed a forest fire alert system, and that is how the forest fire alert system goes on to function. It uses satellite information gathered from NASA as well as ISRO, and that goes on to make it, since that is a sensor model, then the control model, that is through web, and these are how the web inputs are going to be given. That is, any small amount of a problem taking place in that region, and there will be alert issued to the concerned region, provided the bureaucracy is able to follow that, the bureaucracy is able to manage that part. Real-time fire information from identified fire hotspots is gathered using MODI's sensor. Now that's one, and that is meaning moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer. It is going to be 1 by 1 kilometer of a grid, and it is going to be transmitted to the FSI. So once you have taken a photograph to the satellite, then the information that is gathered, that is in the form of MODIs, MODI sensor, moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer, that is going to be transmitted to the forest, that is Forest Survey of India. Now once it is going to be transmitted, then thereafter there is an integrated fire detecting system that takes place. Now take a look at it. Once you're going to take a look at it, you're going to find that it's really well made of sorts. We are going to be talking about satellite imaging, area mapping here. That's a weather collection part, and the internet is going to be made of data aggregation analytics. And once you go on to take a look at it, you will go on to find it how significant it is. That is you have this internet which goes on to give input. You go on to getting input from data aggregation analytics from the satellite and also from the UAV network in this case. Of course, it goes on to share data with the houses, with the user, and with all of this transmission distribution network. Plus, it is a sync. Once this information goes on to sync, that is the instance of fire. Supposing this region has been on fire, then there is an instance of fire, then the drones will go on to pick up this information and start mapping it out as well. There is a sensor deployment that will go on to give you all this information, and that's how exactly it will go on to work in general. Now this is something that you can go to bloat it, increase in size, and take a look. That will go on to give you a much more clearer idea in this case. How is it that the integrated fire detecting system goes on to function? Now, having talked about it, there are other suggestions as well. So we have talked about that is one of the measure of mitigation is going to be through technology, through satellite technology, an integrated fire detection system, which will go on to give you an idea about what to do, when to do it, and you will go on to get information as fast as possible. There are other suggestions as well in trying to control forest fire. One is a replacement of cheered pine trees with other suitable trees to be carried out scientifically. Why cheer and pine? Because pine goes on to form a leaf litter on the surface. There is going to be a leaf litter onto the surface, and that goes on to remain in that place. What has happened some time back is that people go on to plant a lot of pine replacing oaks. And why is it that they do it so? This is largely because of the notion that the bureaucrats go on to be having it, and they are of course illiterate people, uneducated people, because they don't know about the condition. They know how to plant a tree, and for them all the trees are the same, as if all of them are the same. So they have replaced the pine trees with they have replaced the oak trees with pine, and replacement of the cheered pine trees with other suitable trees to be carried out in a scientific manner, especially oak, so that it goes on to much more robust of sorts. Second is selective felling of cheered pine with gradual replacement. When you are talking about selective felling of cheered pine with gradual replacement, I mean it has to be replaced here. And villagers could be provided with appropriate incentive to stay back, not exactly to move out of the region. Because what the villagers are trying to do right now is that most of them are trying to migrate towards the urban areas, and that is not a good sign at all. If these villagers go to remain in that place, they will be having their eyes and ears open all in all. And if that is going to be the case, then they will be much more aware, because the village goes on to belong to them. Anyone outside the country will not be able to outside the region will not be able to feel the region in the same manner as they go on to feel it. Then effective mass utilization of pine needles with the help of technological and industrial support, so that they can go to earn something, they can go to convert into paper, or maybe convert into something much more rational, much more usable also. Other is use the traditional method of beating the fire down with green branches. This is something that has been done, and people going to keep on doing it as well. That is, they keep on beating the fire with green stems of sorts in this case. Encourage it. And of course, if we are thinking about technology, then how is it that the Mi-17 helicopters will be far behind? So you can go on to fill it with water and then take out sorties for the purpose of dumping water over all of them. That's not all. You can go to have swarms of firefighting drones that could be deployed to tackle hugely destructive fires in this place, mega fires. And that is something that can be used for the purpose of monitoring it. And once you have been able to monitor it, the problem is that as the fire starts, then it becomes difficult to manage. But the moment it is going to start on a small scale, it can be managed. Moreover, more modern systems of fire monitoring and maintaining fire lines are going to be important in this case. Modern systems, as we talked about one of them that was satellite. So we again going to talk about that is getting a photo from a satellite may going to help, and that does going to help. And socially, you can go to think of interacting more and more with the people, villagers and the forest department, so that if there is any gap in the information or in the way that is the whole of the phenomena is being perceived, that can be tackled and that can be taken care of as well. Other than that, there is always going to be some of these factors like adoption of a counterfire with forest official starting fires from the opposite side end of a forest to check the flames of a defined boundary. Meeting fire with fire. Adoption of counterfire with forest official for the purpose of starting fire from an opposite direction. That is, if this is how the fires are moving, then you can go to picket it in such a manner so that you can go to check the flames at a defined boundary. It's not going to be spreading that fast. You can go to ban the people who are carrying matchboxes through the forest. Of course, difficult, very, very difficult, all in this case. But then if people start willing it so, you can completely stop the sales of such type of things like matchboxes to the forest. Then awareness campaigns in this region. When we're going to be talking about awareness campaign, that means how is it that the people can be made aware in this case. And we have to take care of the timber mafia. Awareness campaign these days is going to be very, very easy. It's not going to be too difficult with the help of internet. Most of these people who go into internet users, they're going to be using a mobile phone and they're going to be using WhatsApp. You know, who knows it better than you, that a lot of information can be spread out to all of those people in this case. While this is going to be at the heart of it, the best way in which everything can be managed is with local wisdom. Local wisdom means that is the people who have been living in this place, they themselves know which is the best way to manage it. And they have learnt it through so long a time, all in this case. A local wisdom or an ecocentric approach is going to be very significant here. So what local wisdom goes on to mean? It's a body of knowledge which has evolved with life experiences of the local people in that region, living in that region, seeing that region, observe that region, being with that region, and having evolved with the problems of that region. The issue in this case is that all of these people who are going to live in this region, they have this amount of a local wisdom. The issue is abandonment of their valuable heritage, that is local wisdom, because they're going to think that everything Western is going to be much better, while it is their wisdom that is going to be much more significant. But then this is a colonial mindset, all in all. And when we say colonial mindset, of course, it is because of the colonial mindset that I happen to be talking to you in English rather than a native language, because we both of them are at least in one way or the other colonial minded. Moreover, the rural communities in India are replacing their local wisdom with Western ideas of technology, individualism, consumerism, production, anything that you can go on to say. everything is going to be now colonial centric. Everything is based on imitation. Everything is without understanding that what their culture has given them, what their culture has shown them, what their culture has guided them. They keep on following these aspects. For example, when you're going to talk about all of these aspects, the issue of removal of pine needles can be handled easily from the forest, and there is a, that can be addressed due to an indirect issue of mass migration. That means we are not able to address the issue of pine needles and their management in that region. Why there should be pine in that region? Because a good number of people who have been living in that place have migrated. There are some people who do go on to work in that place, and as you can go on to see it, you do going to be having Vishweshwar, who is called as the Vrikshman or tree. I mean, he's the person absolutely in love with it. In this case, love with the trees, who have been doing it so. Then all of these communities which were initially self-sufficient in managing their resources, why is it that they have started facing natural calamities? Community recreation and issues which are initially assets to India, why is it that they are completely dependent upon the government to solve their problem? This is largely because of a complete lack of understanding of the local wisdom in this case. In some places, people have studied, analyzed local wisdom. They have known that is the destruction of the forest can go on to spell a doom for them. And that's the reason Uttarakhand and all the civil societies, they created this type of movement, Chipko movement. But then such type of movement is withering away. It's going to be vanishing all in all. And when we say that is going to be vanishing, then that means that there is some problem that is getting magnified all in all. But then we understand that local wisdom is the best way in which the forest management can go to take place, particularly for forest fire. And when some of these movements, like that of Chipko movement, where you're going to see that is all the girls, the local people in that region, they have gone to hug the trees, they have formed a chain, and they will not going to allow anyone to cut those trees at all. That's the basic thing. That is, if it can be reversed, that can go to do wonder to that area. So we have a national policy. That is, in the national policy of forest fire, the local knowledge is also going to be ignored. That is not going to be taken care of. The national policy to tackle forest fire could have been much more effective with local wisdom, because the way local people can go to manage it, there is no way that everything the central government can go to manage it, and the government can never go to manage it at all. It also goes on to go against the grain of nature-centric approach. Uttarakhand, which is losing its heritage at a very, very fast pace, and its heritage of a state-people partnership and local wisdom, must go on to retrieve its local wisdom as fast as possible. Without local wisdom, without the participation of the local people, there is absolutely no way that we can go on to go ahead. We can go on to go outside and ahead to manage our forest resources, particularly for the purpose of a forest fire in this case. Now, we have talked about the significance of local wisdom. Why, to what extent local wisdom has to be significant, and to what extent is it that this local wisdom can be used for, in what a manner it can be, to what extent that the government has to take care of it as well. When we come to conservation of the forest, then conservation is going to be a several-pronged process. One of them in this case is that, as you can go to say, that is going to be a pre-crisis phase, risk mapping and prevention, crisis phase, fire detection and propagation, and then the post-crisis phase, that is damage assessment. These are the three phases here. That is one, second, and the third. Three phases through which it has to go through. Now understand that it requires an identification and mapping of the fire-prone areas. Which are the areas? Then completion analysis of the data based on the damage due to forest fire. This goes on to become a Western management, but then right now we can go on to pick up Western management along with the local wisdom as well. Then you can install a forest danger rating system also in this case, and a fire forecasting system, by way of which you can go to analyze and forecast that this is the place which is going to be affected by fire. And we have talked about it that there are going to be some satellites which will be able to map the areas where fire has taken place. So all preventive measures are to be taken before the beginning of the fire season. That means all of these are going to be taking place before the beginning of any type of a fire season. Now, once you have taken these measures, then it becomes easy to take it forward. Now, thereafter, you can go to have a crisis management group, which is to monitor the situation during forest period. And this crisis management group can be at the state level. It can be state headquarters, district headquarters, and block level, all the 3 levels. Public awareness has to be created in this case and against the ill effects of fires in this case. When we're going to talk about public awareness has to be created against the ill effects of fire, then a good number of people who have been taught in these regions, but they've been taught in a Western manner, they do not go on to know how is it that the local forests used to behave. How is it that the local aspects in this region used to exist and they used to be doing very well as well. Now, this is what is required to be mitigated. This is what is required to be taken care of as well. If it is going to be taken care of, then that is the only way. That is the way, and that is the only way we can go to save the forest. Fire management is going to be one way. It's a small way of saving the forest. But then the forests have to be saved before it's too late.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.